This is part 6 of the Sequetron test drive, and we'll be looking at commands in more detail now, starting with the play and mute variations. I'm using the full version 8.12 because some of these are unavailable in the limited edition version. The full details are in the command reference document. Now there are far more commands and variations than you would normally need, and the idea is that you choose which ones are suitable for you, map them onto your keyboard and just ignore the rest. So let's record a short sequence for testing. I'll switch the audio metronome on. You don't need to have this on, but I prefer that. We'll play a simple C major chord. There we are, we're done. Stop the metronome, stop the sequence. Now just to clarify the terminology before we go on, the sequences are either stopped or running, and if they're running they can be running unmuted, and I use the term play, or they can be running muted, in which case I use the term muted. Right, for this demo I've altered the factory settings and mapped all the play commands along here on consecutive keys. Now all the ones in black are single function commands, which means they don't need any further data to qualify them. In other words, if you remember the 4 steps of the command sequence, they don't need a step 4. Now you've seen the play command before. This is a shorthand for saying play forever, or play and loop forever. I'll just show you that one again. We select the sequence and play. The state column here has a little P to mean it's playing. We can stop it. Okay, now if we say play 1, that really just means play 1 cycle and then mute forever. Now the state and the colour of the blob both indicate that it's muted. And the reason the sequence hasn't stopped is because we want to retain the timing with other sequences. If I say play now, it will synchronize to the cycle boundary before it switches into play mode or unmuted mode. Okay, so the others are as you'd expect. Play 4 says play 4 cycles and then mute. We'll try that. There we go. Let's try play 16. Now in the state column you can see the countdown value here. And there are 2 others here, R and RR. R stands for random. I'm not sure how useful these are, but they're there anyway. You can choose to use them or not. R means a single digit, which means it will pick a random number from 1 to 9. RR is a double digit, so it will pick a random number from 1 to 99. All these commands are very quick to use because they do not need a step 4. But the disadvantage is that you need a command key for each one. So if you're short of keys, then this may be a problem. So to get around this, we've got 2 other commands. One's called play n, which expects a step 4 now, a value for the n, which is the number of cycles you want. We'll select sequence 2, play n, and now you can see the keyboard's gone into digit mode, and the input line here is showing us that it's expecting a single digit n to specify the number of cycles. So we could put in 6, say. Okay, if you want more than 9 cycles, you can use the PNN command, which expects 2 digits. There's the input line showing you it's expecting 2 digits there. So we could put in, say, 12. Okay, so there's a trade-off between these commands. You either have a dedicated command for each key, or you can have a single generic command which goes up to 9, or you can have a single generic command that goes up to 99. And you can mix and match any of these as you want. If you need more fixed commands than I provided here, just ask. So those are the three variations of the play command. The reason I've laboured this point is that the concept applies to other commands. So we'll look at those now. I'll load my key maps that I saved earlier. And this one is the set of mute commands. We have a mute forever command, and then a mute 1, mute 2, mute 4, etc., mute random, and the mute n and nn generic commands. Now you might say, well, why do I need a mute command? Well, this allows you to set up sequences. Don't forget you can select more than one sequence at a time. You can set up sequences in advance to switch to play mode at a certain number of cycles time. So if you're improvising something and you want a particular sequence to come in at a particular point, you could say, for example, mute it for 8 cycles, and then it will come in automatically without you doing anything else, which leaves you both hands free to be playing on the keyboard. So I'll just demonstrate that now. Sequence 2, mute 4. If you watch the sequence going through its cycle here, if I say 4, see the countdown, and then it will start playing. I'll do that again. I'll say mute 8. The countdown's starting from 8, going down to 1. Okay, so now we'll look at a slightly more complicated command. These are the play mute family of commands. Here they are, PM. And again, a similar idea as before, the single function, the single command key commands, and the generic ones. And the way these work is they play for so many cycles, and then mute for so many cycles, and repeat. So let's try a PM1 on sequence 2. So you can see every other cycle it's muting. We'll do every 2 cycles. And so on. We can have every 4. And the generic ones work as you'd expect. We can say play mute for 3. Okay, there's a slight variation on this one. That was play mute, but there's a mute play family, MP. And these are exactly the same, except that they start off in muted state first. They still toggle between mute and play, but the play mute command starts in play mode. The mute play starts in mute mode. And the final play mute option is the play mute toggle. Now the other commands all work on sequences whether they're running or stopped. If they're running, it applies on the next cycle boundary. If they're stopped, then it will start them first. What this command does is it toggles between play and muted modes for any sequences that are running. Right, our sequence 2 was a C major chord. I've got another sequence 3 which I prepared earlier, which is an F major chord. So if we mute that one and start sequence 2 again, okay, sequence 2 is playing, sequence 3 is muted, but they're both running. Right, I'll select those two and say play mute toggle. Okay, so that's just done a one shot of toggling all muted to plays and all plays to muted. I'll switch them back. Now if we use the ones that involve numbers of cycles, it will repeat. This one, for example, will repeat every cycle. I could repeat every 4, for example. So we can add quite a bit of variation to the running sequences using these simple commands. Now all these play and mute alternating commands use the same number of cycles for playing and muting. But what if you want a different number? Well, there's a Cyclic Modifier function, which sounds rather grand, but all it is a single key that you press just before the digit values. You then enter the 2 sets of digit values you want. So for example, we'll say command sequence 2. Now the modifier only works on these 2 commands, the N and NN variant. Those are the ones where you would type in a digit value. So we'll go for the single digit one for now. Now just before we enter the digit, we press this key here, which is the Cyclic Modifier function. The input line here is also reminding us we can put in the single digit or the Cyclic Modifier function. So we'll press that now, and now it's asking us for a play and a mute value. So say we want 3 plays, there's the 3 there, and we want 1 mute. So 3 on, 1 off. If we wanted to use digits greater than 9, then we use the NN variant. We hit the Cyclic Modifier key. Now we need 2 sets of 2 digits. Again, the input line gives you a clue. 2 values for the play and 2 values for the mute. So we could say 12 on and 4 off. 0, 4. So that's 16 beats split up into 12 on and 4 off. Now let's look at some recording options. All the play and mute commands that we've seen that are just single command keys, in other words they don't need a value representing the number of cycles, they can all be used as control keys to stop a recording. And we've already seen the play function being used, where as you're recording you can press the play button and the recording will stop and the sequence will immediately start playing. Well, we can use any other commands that we've discussed. I've mapped a few here as an example. So if we pretend to record on sequence 2, record, these are the control keys. Now obviously the more control keys you have in record mode, the less keys there are available for recording. There are techniques which are described in the documentation for offloading these control keys to another keyboard or even a foot controller, and that will free up more keys for recording. But for now I've just reserved the bottom 6 keys of the keyboard just for this demo. So I've mapped a play 2 function here. There's a mute 4 and a play 8, a play mute 1 and a mute play 1. Any other command which does not require any parameters can be used. So this is how it works. We'll start the metronome. I'll record on sequence 2, and what I'll do is I'll press the play 2 command key after I finish recording, and this will play whatever I've recorded twice and then mute forever. Right, I've stopped recording. And if you counted, that was 2 cycles. The first cycle is the actual recording itself, that counts as 1. And then it repeats once, so your total number of cycles is 2. I'll do that again with a shorter sequence. Stop sequence 2, record. I'll just play a single chord now. And we just had 2 cycles. We'll stop that one. I'll record, and this time we'll do mute 4. I'll do a single chord, so this will mute 4 beats and then start playing. Now, right, what else can we do? There's a play 8. Let's try that one. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, mute. As the last one is a play mute, so we can get it to immediately start alternating between playing and muting by whatever number of cycles we've picked. I've mapped the PM1 key. Here's the PM1 key, so it will alternate every other cycle. So we'll play that to stop the recording. I'll do one beat again. There we are, it's done. Stop. And the mute play is the reverse.